And the more you use gestures with your children at an earlier stage, the better it is. Hi everyone, I am Thasbih Amin, speech and language therapist working in Dubai. In my experience, one of the most undervalued milestones of language and communication development is gestures. The reason being, whenever I ask parents, did your child start pointing between the age of 9 months to 12 months? Most of the time, the response I get is that of surprise. They tell me that they don't remember this milestone, and then they ask me, is it that important? Well, I'm here to say that gestures are one of the biggest predictors of early language development. The reason being, children start to use gestures before they can talk. They start pointing before they can start making word and gesture combinations. A child starts pointing to a desired item, and then later on, that gesture is paired with the name of the item. For example, first they start pointing to the ball, and later on they start pointing and they use the word ball together. That word-gesture combination is what leads the way to form multi-word speech. So today we are going to discuss about gestures, the different types of gestures, and what are some of the simple activities that you can do at home with your little ones to increase their use of gestures. Because gestures are one of the earliest indicators of language development, and the more you use gestures with your children at an earlier stage, the better it is. Let's begin. By definition, gestures is the movement of a part of the body, mainly the hands and your head, for example, pointing and using your head for a yes and no. It is usually used to express an idea or a meaning. Typically, gestures start developing between the age of 9 months to 12 months. There are 3 main types of gestures that you need to look for. The first type of gestures that develop is called deictic gestures. These develop between the time frame of 9 months to 12 months. During this time, children start pointing. For example, pointing to their favorite toy, pointing to the table, pointing to the chair. As they progress, this pointing is combined with spoken words, so it becomes a word and gesture combination. The next type is symbolic gestures. These gestures develop between the time frame of 12 to 13 months. During this time, children use objects and they enact the function of the object. So for example, they take a toy telephone and they keep it to the ear. They use an empty cup to feed themselves. As they progress, by the time they reach 16 to 20 months, they start using a spoon where they are pretending to stir and eat from a cup. And they also use their hand as a telephone to talk. So as you can see, children, they start using objects and they slowly move to not using objects and using pretend play. The last one is representational gestures. These develop during the same time as symbolic gesture between the time frame of 12 to 13 months. In representational gestures, children do not use any sort of objects. They use themselves. So for example, they flap their hands to pretend like a bird. Now these gestures, they progress into using more spoken words and gesture combinations, and over time, gestures fade and children start using more spoken words. Here are some simple activities that you can do at home with your child. I've done this with my daughter and the results have been phenomenal. The first activity is natural consequences. In this activity, when the child reaches out to something, you point to it and you name it. For example, if the child is reaching out to their favorite toy, a ball, you point to the ball and you tell the child, "Ball, you want the ball." And then you give the ball to the child. As you can see, the more responsive you get to their attempts at using gestures, children learn that things happen around them if they are trying to communicate. So if your child asks for a cookie, or rather gestures towards wanting a cookie at night, I think you should give it to them at the beginning, because you are trying to encourage them to communicate. Pointing pictures in books. When you read books to your child, make sure you point to the pictures and you name them. And you also take their hands. If they have not started pointing yet, you can still take their hands and place them on the pictures and name them as you go. You will be surprised when one day you ask them, "Where is the dog?" They might just keep their hands or they might just point to it. Also, while reading books, you can use gestures to represent animals. For example, you could make two V's over your head to show a rabbit. You could keep your hands close to your chest and you could jump and show, which depicts a kangaroo. And the last one is the pointing walk. This is a good activity to facilitate the understanding and the use of common objects at home. In this activity, you take your child and you point to the common things that you see at home. You point to the chair and you say, "This is a chair, this is the table, look up, these are the lights." As you keep practicing this exercise and make it fun for your child, one fine day, you will see them pointing to the chair. Make gestures a fun, interesting, and meaningful activity for your child. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Thank you for watching.